Sonic Universe Issue 19. We started with Bunny, after looking scared at Antoine falling into the sea, smiling happily. So I guess she finally realized what he was really planning. She lies to the suspicious grunt that she's upset because years of work just got ruined, and now she's gonna have to do damage control while playing the bereaved widow, which she doesn't have time for. She's really phenomenal at playing the villain. I mean, wow, I really wish I got to see Buns in this kind of position. She rants like a typical villain in power, that first the minions ambush her without checking her status, and then they can't keep one little prisoner active. And then they let him jump into the ocean instead of grabbing him while he was talking. One of the grunts is suspicious of her because of how upset she had looked about Antoine before, blowing her cover by screaming after him when she really didn't have to. And we cut to Antoine on top of Tails in the submarine above the water, happily boasting about how his plan was cunning and Tails' timing was perfect. Again, Batman again, but he's lucky Tails actually decided to go in the submarine and happened to be in just the right place to catch him. Although again, he was shown swimming issues ago, so it's not like he needed to land just on top of him. He could have swam. Tails yells at him to get off him, and Antoine, still caught up in how happy he was that his master plan worked, gets into the submarine's seat connected to the Sea Fox, explaining his plan to him. Tails explains that because the Sea Fox is damaged, it can't be used to attack from underwater. I guess it takes too much time to repair it. Tails creatively drills into the base of the island, and the two hammer nails getting their submarines anchored to the wall, as Tails explains that he found an underground tunnel that connects to the island's cave network. Antoine reminisces about how Tails used to be a cute little kid, to Tails' annoyance, recapping the Tails miniseries, and even ruffles his hair like a big brother. I wonder how long he's wanted to do that, and what provoked him to actually try this finally. Unfortunately, his loving big brother behavior isn't exactly encouraged on Tails' part because of Antoine's terrible way at handling it here. Not only does he talk to him like a puppy, saying, "You are," twice, and calling him a manly man condescendingly, but Tails gets furious with his eye twitching at the behavior, and is obviously doing everything he can to avoid outright exploding at him in a rage with a twisted smirk on his face. Since when does Antoine act like this to Tails? Well, we barely get to see them have one-on-one interaction, so maybe this is supposed to be normal for them, but this is really annoying. I wouldn't expect him to screw up this badly with him. Then after Antoine looks scared, he for some reason says Tails is just being a humble hero for no reason, and acts like an idiot blissfully unaware of how obviously enraged Tails looked, when you'd think a lifelong coward would recognize that anger in a heartbeat. I can only assume for his sake that this is part of his Master Actor Act 2, to avoid looking cowardly for being afraid of Tails of all people, or maybe to avoid getting Tails upset that he scared him, because this is terrible forced comedy at its absolute worst. It's the kid versus cat type of joke, making a supposedly oblivious character briefly act like they caught on, only to suddenly act like they didn't when realistically that previous reaction would only prove they knew what was going on and is covering it up. Antoine's no dumbass, and considering he just bragged about what a great plan he thought up, it's really weird to have him inconsistently go from a planning genius to absolutely terrible interacting with someone he's been friends with his whole life. Remember the time that he went to Robotropolis to get a ring for Tails, and was all a sweet big brother to him? Now, Tails doesn't even appreciate that kind of treatment. If this is how their dynamic is, how does Tails not completely hate him? Antoine shows nervousness at Teapot reluctantly taking a bit to call him a good boy, just because it's a robot. Oh, so he'll be intimidated by this little thing, but Tails having a murderous smirk, that he blows off. And then he proceeds to get scared of going to a dark cave. So he's scared of the dark and a teapup, but he's not scared of this? Or more likely he was, but then remembered that it's just Tails, and he wouldn't kill him or anything. Meanwhile, we finally get to see that mad scientist Dr. F that a grunt almost told Tails about, as the suspicious grunt asks him to use his computer. The mad scientist, who reminds me of the guy Teapup knocks out by putting a boulder on his head in Tails' Adventure, who never really struck me as a mad scientist, amusingly complains sarcastically to the grunt, "Oh sure, come on in. It's not like I'm busy or anything. It's not as though I value some peace and quiet while I do my work." He's very antisocial. Also, I hate squiggly glasses whenever I see them on characters, because all I can think about is, how can they possibly see past the squiggles drawn on their lenses? I wear glasses and even tiny specks of dust give me trouble. For some reason, the grunt isn't scared and intimidated of him at all. I guess because he's so used to him. But he's still superior. The scientist lampshades how little respect he gets, complaining that people don't even call him by his name, just Doctor. Now, it would be interesting if this would eventually cause him to snap and get so disgruntled that he leaves the Battlebird Armada to be a villain on his own. So of course that's never going to happen because that would be interesting and different from the games. As the grunt logs into the Eggnet database, which I can only assume is just the internet, and is generously made accessible to anyone because how the hell else would he get access to it so easily? He's asked to say his name and admits that he just can't pronounce it. He then proves Bunny's true identity with just a Google search, and the mad scientist dismisses roboticization as pseudoscience magitech malarkey. Magitech at least makes sense because that sounds pretty magical, but he truly is mad if he's actually implying that he doesn't believe roboticization is real. Tails, looking at a map he has of the cave system that I guess he had in his submarine, tells Antoine about the directions as Teapup lights the way with his eyes that Tails conveniently made to glow on command for no reason. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that the overexcited kid would go overboard with it and put anything in it that he can technology-wise. It's meant to be a helper, not just a pet. Also, I love the design of Teapup here. It looks so ugly and hard to describe in Tails' Adventure. Tails mentions the ancient architecture in the caves, made by who knows who. Let me guess, it's made by the Battlebird's ancestors. So out of sheer coincidence, they found their ancestral homeland by sheer accident. Tails puts his hand over Antoine's mouth to avoid him screaming from seeing bombs around grunts. First of all, he screamed at that, but not Tails looking enraged. And second, he didn't react like this when Miles showed him bombs. Did he not take them seriously to actually use them right from the start or something? The grunt amusingly complains that it's called planned demolition for a reason, and if he blew up the floor here, they'd fall straight into the tunnel below, with his compatriot amusingly saying, "Oh, I guess that's a good reason." They do so much to make these grunts feel humanized instead of just thugs and soldiers. Why can't they do that for grunts more often? Antoine and Tails punch the grunts, with Antoine saying to confuse them that he doesn't get why they have to keep blasting when the undertunnel already leads straight back to the base. Antoine then ties them up with convenient rope that where did the rope come from? Anyways, Tails twists the wires of the bombs together and says that they'll be good enough to blast them through to the other side. So there is bombing walls in this adaptation. Tails flies into the tunnel carrying Antoine and gets spotted by an army of battlebirds, causing a fight they smirk at the thought of going into. The grunt, wait, is that Speedy? How did I forget that was him? I'm really not familiar enough with his design in this comic then. I guess what got me to notice it was him was that he called Tails the two-tailed freak again, as he warns his boss about Tails' assault on their base. I guess I expected him to be taller, I don't know. He gets the reply that his boss merely sent Bunny, and isn't able to correct him right then and there for some stupid reason. Maybe he just is too afraid of him to correct him? Bunny comes to rescue Antoine, and the two have a loving embrace as Antoine fortunately apologizes for worrying her. Bunny says that what she was smiling about was that she saw Tails, and that's how she figured it out. He looked down out of the door and saw his sub under the water, and that's why he jumped. Bunny then gives him a sword from the armory, which Antoine squeezed at seeing. Bunny's justification is that now he doesn't have to bruise his knuckles anymore. But honestly, that just really frustrates me because he's not allowed to actually hit anyone with a sword. Or he'd obviously bump up the rating of the comic quite a bit. So if anything, she just dropped his usefulness by 100%. At least when he was using his fists, he was being competent. Maybe that was the hidden key to make him competent all along. Get rid of the fucking sword! Bunny sweetly hugs Tails, thanking him for his efforts, showing a really clear friendship moment with him for, what, the first time? I can't remember her ever being that affectionate with him before. As Antoine notices that his knuckles are realistically a little chafed, she says that she brought Tails a gift too, saying while pulling something green out that she downloaded the schematics of the base while chatting with their leader. While it sure is nice that apparently she can do that and has a pocket to keep that download thing in her cybernetics, there's a lot of convenient stuff happening in this adaptation. I just now noticed Bunny has a wedding ring actually drawn on her hand. I wonder how many times they forgot to draw that on her. She immediately contrasts herself from Antoine in one of her many ways by finding Teapup cute, And with the way she talks to it, she proves that Antoine really was talking to Tails like a puppy. She puts the information in T-Pop, who conveniently is suddenly able to project a hologram of the schematics of the base, which is yellow to match Tails' fur. T-Pop, being an all-purposes machine, doesn't come off as a Deus Ex Machina like Nicole in her handheld form scanning everything did, because at least it makes sense that Tails would be overeager enough to make his little helper as useful to him as possible. Tails gets the idea that if they do enough damage from the storage bay, they could weaken the infrastructure of the entire base, because they'd have to spend a lot of time with repairs before they could hope to do anything else. Antoine smirks, eager to cause destruction over there, and Tails does so as well, and they charge past an army. Tails tells Bunny to start tearing through a wall to sever a crucial duct. Then the mad scientist shows up, saying that this island was a creation of his, and after they make fun of his name, make me wonder why he didn't just get it legally changed already. He orders some lasers to be shot at them, which they conveniently dodge just in time. Tails conveniently avoids flying right into the metal fist flying upwards in front of him out of nowhere when he had no way of knowing it was coming. Okay, I guess he should have heard it rocketing up, but there's no text indicating a sound effect. And Bunny shoots at it with her cybernetic arm. Unfortunately, she gets slammed into the wall, denied some usefulness. And after Tails pushes Antoine out of the way of a laser, the two of them get approached by a giant blue robot of a mad scientist. I was expecting this arc to end in 3 issues, not 4. This issue is by Ian Flynn. After Antoine lands in Tails' lap because Tails' submarine was conveniently just below him from the door above, and Tails conveniently saw him in time to put down the windshield, resurface, and catch him, they go into the tunnel, getting past some grunts bombing a wall along the way. A Bunny reunites with them, and conveniently reveals that she can store a memory stick in a pocket in her cyborg legs now that she conveniently thought to keep with her on the vacation. And T-Pop is able to conveniently use it to project a hologram of the map of the base because Tails was excited about engineering enough to make him conveniently capable of whatever the plot demands, giving him all sorts of abilities he doesn't have in the game for originality and plot convenience's sake. And then Bunny somehow gets totally bested by a flying robotic fist when she was completely prepared for it this time, conveniently for the villain. And this was after Tails conveniently avoided getting hit by the flying metal fist that came out of nowhere and knocked out himself. Are you sick of all the convenientlies yet? I know I am. It's cool, Tails' plan, but so many lucky breaks for the heroes in this arc. Also, Antoine is meant to be a complete dumbass at social skills for the sake of giving Tails an excuse to get furious with being treated like a little kid again. Even then, it wasn't fully fleshed out as a concept to justify this derailment even a little bit, because Antoine immediately acts like he somehow didn't know Tails was angry and the plot thread is dropped. Yeah, right, how do you not know that? If his demented smirk didn't clue you in, the way he was talking should've. It would've been great if he lost his temper and actually yelled at him for his behavior, instead of making Antoine a complete idiot who acts totally oblivious to Tails' anger, only to be scared of things that look much less scary than this. Instead of having panels about T-Pop seeing the cave and Antoine being scared of the dark, we could have seen Tails call him out on it, and Antoine feel bad and hurt and apologize, having a sweet moment between the two. But no, of course not. Instead, they act so dysfunctional as friends that I have to wonder why Tails doesn't hate him. This is why forced comedy sucks. It makes no sense in universe insulting the audience because Antoine acted oblivious for no reason other than to get a cheap laugh.